You're not asking an interesting question, and you didn't even. We just Googled this in 2 minutes. Like this took 2 minutes. It was 2 minutes to look this up. Why didn't you look this up? This is like the main part of your platform that you talk about all these conspiracies. Why not take 2 seconds and actually like Google it?
What?
How many women do you have to f before you're like, man, I need to try f***ing a 10-year-old?
The Joe Rogan Experience.
Oh God, ESG. Kill me. Oh, anytime you see ESG in the title, you know you're about to hear the dumbest finance takes across the entire internet. Oh boy.
How much, Joe, have you looked at, Larry Fink, Soros, State Street, Vanguard, Blackrock? How much have you looked at what they're doing and what their ties are?
I've looked at it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
They're pretty much running everything.
Yeah.
Why the f retweet that game yesterday? First of all, what do you mean, why the f are you so aggressive? Secondly, that's a cool dude. He's one of the guys that did the composition challenges. And not only did he do bowler composition challenges with almost no formal theory background at all or composition background at all, which is impressive. He also was the guy that did all of the animations for our Dungeons and Dragons campaign.
Have any of you introduced you?
I'm in the. I'm sitting at.
He did all these things.
Right at the edge of the bar.
Cupcakes are.
S&P 500, the number that 88% of the companies on S&P 500, 88% of them, the largest shareholder of those companies is either State Street, BlackRock, or Vanguard. 88% of them, okay? And then you see their influence in defense contracts, okay? So we went through a deal. I'm like, let me see if...
What? Wait, what did he just say? Hold on, I'm sorry. I don't even know what he just said.
Holder of those companies is either State Street, BlackRock, companies on S&P numbers running everything.
Yeah.
S&P 500, the number that 88% of the companies on S&P 500, 88% of them, the largest shareholder of those companies is either State Street, BlackRock, or Vanguard.
When he says 88%, the largest owners are these three things. It's not just like, yeah, almost every American has a pension fund or 401k that has shares that are managed by like Vanguard, BlackRock, these like huge firms. It doesn't mean that like there's like 7 shady men at BlackRock that own personally. Like these are assets under management by these companies. Whatever. Okay.
88% of them. Okay. And then you see their influence in defense contracts.
What influence?
Okay. So we went through a deal. I'm like, let me see if these guys, this ESG, Larry Fink, Vanguard, State Street, if they have any influence on
making me use people
military.
to remove this cuck ban.
Contract, defense contract. If you Google the largest shareholder for Raytheon, 3 out of the 4 top shareholders of Raytheon, BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard. It could be top 3 with Raytheon, but I think it's 3 out of 4. If you go look up General Dynamics, if you go look up Boeing, if you go look up...
It does kind of mean they hold the voting power in stockholders' meetings, though, instead of those who own their shares through them. Does that? Don't you have the ability to exercise your vote, though? If you're... I guess it depends on if you buy the stock through the company or if you buy a fund that's being managed by them that owns part of the company, I guess. I'm not even sure if this guy knows the difference. But I think because like there's 2 ways. Here's a question, right? And I'll be honest, I don't actually know how this is counted. So I could go to Vanguard and I could buy a stock in Raytheon, I don't know what their ticker is, through Vanguard. Or I could go to Vanguard and I could buy a Vanguard fund. And in that fund, it might have Raytheon stock. If I buy the stock through Vanguard, then I'm pretty sure I would still have my vote. If I buy the stock through Vanguard, but it's like a managed fund, I think they might have the vote here. But at best, all you've gotten to do at best is show that that what they have like a 5, 10, 15% ownership. Like, show me some bad or improper behavior, right? There are quarterly financial statements. I'm pretty sure they release like minutes from shareholder meetings and shit. Like, show me some bad behavior. Don't just say they own it, therefore world conspiracy. Show me some bad behavior.
Northrop Grumman, okay? And then you work backwards and you say, okay, how much money is that in what these guys are doing? You'll find the amount of money we spent in our military, $744 billion on how much we're making from defense, but you'll see some numbers saying last year it's 13% of our GDP, which is around $850 billion. That's more than the next 10 combined. We gave more money to Ukraine than Russia spent on their military last year.
How much actual money did we give to Ukraine? How much money did US give to Ukraine? Because a lot of what we've given them has been like surplus, like materials and shit, like supplies. There wasn't just cash, but I'm curious like what the actual cash transfer has been. Okay, this is only current as of May 20th. I'm pretty sure we've provisioned more since then. Oh, best tracker, hold on. An index fund is just a gathering of assets that the broker manages and sells as a package. They equate to actual shares and the broker doesn't own the stock. All investors hold any voting rights. An index fund. Oh, that might be true. So the assets under management would just be buying and selling the actual assets that make up the fund. We should look into this one at one point, actually. I need to rage over somebody and go over like exactly the differences between all of these. Ukraine support tracker. I'm sorry, I just want to see the... Okay, military, humanitarian, financial. So financial means, I'm guessing, money, right? So we've pledged about $24.26 billion, and then financial, we've given about $43 billion in equipment.
Do you think that if Trump lost the election and was facing prison, he would threaten to release NDI to adversaries to get a pardon via back channel, or engage in outright incitement to violence?
Would Trump do that? I don't know. If he could get away with it, maybe. But I'm not, who knows? No, if he could get away with it, yeah, he would. He would. He's been so brazen. How much does Russia spend on military? Russia's 2022 military budget is expected to be 4.7 trillion rubles, $75 billion. Oh, Jesus. Okay, so even if you include our military supply, Russia's military budget is higher than what we sent. Okay, just checking. All right.
That's more than the next 10 combined. We gave more money to Ukraine than Russia spent on their military last year. And when you...
So the statement's just not true, no matter which way you look at it. Even if you're being charitable and you include military transfers as money, which they're not, this is just not true. The chart you looked at showed euros, not dollars. I mean, these days, what's the difference? If it's euros, not dollars. Oh, this is euros, not dollars. What is the trend? Jesus. It doesn't change it that much. But, okay.
You look at these contracts, then you're like, okay, Fink is there, these guys are there. Like, okay, let's go look at Hollywood. Same thing you see there. Let's go look at pharmaceutical. Let's go look at this. And you're like, wait a minute. These guys essentially have a monopoly. Well, how big is Blackrock? $10 trillion. How big is $10 trillion?
Reminder, the
Only
Pentagon
two
accidentally accounted for the military aid we sent as replacement costs, rather than book value, and found an entire extra aircraft carrier worth of aid to send to Ukraine Gigachad.
Countries have a bigger GDP than what BlackRock has, assets under management. Well, how big is BlackRock? $10 trillion. how big is $10 trillion? Only 2 countries have a bigger GDP than what BlackRock has, assets under management, US and China. That's how big BlackRock is. So then they went and they started getting all these other guys to sign on and say, hey, we want you to participate with the same thing as well with ESG. And they ended up having, I think they had 31 signers. I think end of 2022, they got 60 something signers for a total of $70 trillion of assets under management that they're controlling. So now they're controlling other places. And just recently, if you saw the rebuilding of Ukraine, did you see this contract? Rebuilding of Ukraine.
What?
Is that everything? All right, I got a couple things. So one, he says all this stuff about AUM and he keeps comparing it to GDP, but these are totally unrelated. So GDP is basically like how much money these companies are making. So if you have $10 trillion, let's say you're making 10%, you're making $1 trillion per year, which puts BlackRock pretty low. The second thing is that revenue doesn't...
because if you wanted to compare assets under management, if you wanted to create AUM, what you should really be comparing that to is there a number that measures the total
the
assets?
capital stock.
Yeah, okay. Okay, that's a really good point. Yeah, because GDP measure, it's just the total cost of all goods and services, which would be the equivalent to like revenues or something that these hedge funds are...
Yeah, but it's not even that, because almost all of that flows through to all the people who own all the shares, right? So like, even if BlackRock is getting in $1 trillion per year, well, 99.9% of that is literally going out to every single one of the investors instead of going to BlackRock itself. So they're making, I don't know, 10 billion or 100 billion, something like that, which is like basically minuscule. There's so many more companies that do that.
Sure.
Yeah, and then I think the other like real black pill take on ESG is none of these companies actually care about ESG at all. So basically what's happened in the asset manager space is with the introduction of Vanguard, there's been a huge push towards like low cost index investing, which has sent the management fees like down like astronomically. If you look at how much it costs to own the S&P 500 like 1970 to today, you've lost like 80 to 90% of the management fees that you're doing. So my guess is that these ESG scores are just a way for BlackRock and these other places to just justify charging a higher management fee. I want to say BlackRock's ESG funds were like 15 basis points more, something like that, more expensive than owning the other ones. And so when, you're on a Vanguard fund and you're charging, 4 basis points, 5 basis points.
I don't understand how you speak
or
with such
maybe if you're
authority
like
on
at
the
a more
facts when
expensive
first...
asset manager and you're charging 20 basis points, basically like doubling or tripling your revenue or quadrupling even just by adding in this like one minor thing. It's like a very, very good way to drive revenue and pretend like you care without really doing much at all to change the products that you're offering and everything else. If you look at the underlying ESG scores themselves, a lot of these companies, they have like all sorts of like different methodologies. And so you have companies like ExxonMobil, for instance, who has a better ESG score than say Tesla, which is basically, if we take a look at what do we think when we think ESG, well, we would think probably making electric cars is better, but it's just like governance and things like that. So,
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else?
No, that's it. Oh, I guess if you have any questions real quick before I hop off about any of this stuff, but I have a meeting in 1 minute.
Okay. Be careful. Love you, babe.
All right, take care.
Koalakoa gifted 50 subs and kick. Thanks, buddy. I love you. Somebody in YouTube chat donated and said, I don't understand how you speak with such utter surety on the vax when in the first 21 days after vax, a person is counted as unvaxxed per ONS. Don't think this could lead to systematic miscategorization? I don't know what ONS stands for. What, am I missing an acronym here? I'm just seeing one night stand. Office for National Statistics? Is
Why
that
is Rage Pope
a
always out of
US
breath?
thing or is that a British thing? Or I have no idea. Also, I don't believe you. I don't believe that's the case. If you have a link for that, I'd be interested in seeing it. But ONS, Office of National Statistics. Oh, it is a UK thing. Gotcha. Okay. I don't know. I can't speak to UK shit. I doubt that's true though. Sounds completely made up. But
Ukraine, $400 billion contract. BlackRock and Chase is helping rebuild Ukraine. And then, okay, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but what the hell is going on here? They have that much control to get everybody to do.
Can I just, okay, I can't, I feel like going crazy. This is why I don't like any of these people, okay? If you want to ask a question like that, then go do some fucking research. If something seems, like, imagine, I feel like I'm shouting into the void. If you see something that looks a little bit weird, why don't you go do some actual research instead of going on a show and just asking questions about it? Why not go do the research? Figure out if there's something shady. Make some phone calls. Get on Google and actually look some shit up. Like, what? Like, why do you be like, oh, isn't this kind of weird? Florida Surgeon General altered key findings in study on COVID-19 vaccine safety. Wait, when was this? Jesus. Why didn't I hear about this? Big Pharma. Oh, and support of hydroxychloroquine. Nice. Oh, and he's part of the America's Frontline Doctors group. Oh, Jesus. Pretty sure nearly half the U.S. aid to Ukraine has been loaned. We're not just giving them shit for nothing. Oh, are they loans too? I don't know.
Do what they want them to do? Yes. So Dylan Mulvaney, who cares? Why? Bud Light. How does that tie up? You got the DEI, the HRC, the human rights, and all this stuff. And then you go even deeper, which is even the crazier part with, the education, schools. Like, the biggest union we have in America, I think it's National Education something. NEA is the largest union we have. 3 million teachers are part of that union. And you look at that and you go deeper in that with open society and who's funding it, who's the money behind these organizations. Comes back, Soros. How do you feel about the kind of power they have right now to fight against them? Because this isn't like a billionaire can come out and say, I'm going to go up against these guys. They don't have a little bit of money. A billionaire to these guys is nothing. They got the kind of control that can make companies fire boards. They can replace CEOs. They can replace leaders if they don't like. They have their hands so much into it where many times when people say the people of power, I'm kind of like, who are the people of power? Are you convinced these guys are really running the world, or what do you think about what some of these bigger companies are doing, like State Street, Vanguard, and Blackrock?
What are they doing? Tell us.
Massive amounts of influence. What do you think they're doing?
Yeah, what do you think they're doing?
It's the question is, how do you fight it? Like,
Fight
for
what?
example, the way we fight mainstream is by what? The show that we do. And we have to be patient. It's going to take 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 20 years. Now you have some influence, right? Okay, we can fight. There is an actual strategy on how to fight that. No problem. You got a kid in school who's a bully. He's bigger than you. He keeps bullying you. You have a strategy.
Don't you have Bud Light stock? Oh, true. I did buy that. How are we doing on our Bud Light? Let's check. We bought this with our conservative molding money. I don't know if this is good or bad. I'm up $1,200. I don't know if that's beating or losing in the market on this right now. I have no idea. I just bought this to make conservatives mold.
Strategy on how to beat the guy. You take a year, jiu-jitsu 2 years, this, that. Boom. One fight, he knows, I'm never going to touch Joe again. screw this thing. I'm not doing this no more, right? There is a play to it. When you have this much, Joe, 88% of S&P 500 companies, that is a form of a monopoly. If I'm a president, whether it's a Trump or...
That's a monopoly? What? That... For assets under management? What is the monopoly? I mean, you could argue that maybe some brokers are too big, but like...
Or whoever else goes out there and does it. Our monopoly law in America is 50%. They say 50%. Like if you tie and said, at what point is it 50%? I've done calls with the FTC. Like we had one of our guys' technology we were using. The FTC called and said, hey, we want to have a call with you because they're thinking about buying this other technology company and we're worried it's going to be a monopoly. So we had the call, okay? At the end of the call with us, with a bunch of different people, we said, we love their product, we love their product. That deal didn't end up happening, okay? The monopoly law. Some of these guys are influencing it. But they say 50% is a monopoly law. Do you know how many people in America have an iPhone versus Droid? You know what the numbers, market shares in America with iPhones?
I think it's like 60.
58%, 60%. Yeah. That is already a monopoly. But who's knocking on the door of Apple? Tim Cook saying, hey, Tim, you got 58%. That's breaking a monopoly law. Nobody is. I think someone's got to break apart. You know, in 1993, I don't know which senator it was, these guys that were...
Okay, people are spamming question marks. I don't know how something exists in the U.S. as not as monopolies. I do feel like that's kind of weird. But
trying to get the defense contractors to be better at the pricing, what they were charging, because they were overcharging DOD, and DOD people don't know what the hell is going on. They're like, yeah, okay, how much? $68 million, do it. $1.2 billion, do it. I'm not going to over-negotiate the money. They took 51 defense companies and they brought it down to only 5. It's only 5 companies right now when you want to buy anything. Think about that. So defense contractors is 5. We know how these guys make money. Earlier, you know, I was asking you a question, why do you think vaccine? And you're like, Pat, that's how they make their money, right? I mean, if you and I run a hotel, rooms are empty, we're not making money. We need people to stay in the rooms. If you and I are running a hospital, we need people on the beds to make money.
Yeah.
If there's no people on the beds, we ain't making money. If these 5 contractors are fighting for $744 billion, what do they want more of? Wars. They want more people dying.
In what world are wars good for the economy in terms of, like, maybe in World War II it was, but I feel like instability and stuff like that, energy, like soaring energy prices, I feel like it generally fucks over, like, everybody except for maybe some of the defense contractors. Is there a way to, like... Can we look this up? How did Ukrainian war affect U.S. economy? The increased geopolitical risks induced by the Russian invasion of Ukraine will weigh adversely on global economic conditions throughout 2022. Such effects are estimated in our model to reduce GDP and boost inflation significantly, exacerbating the policy trade-offs facing central banks around the world. Share of firms mentioning Russia-Ukraine war. If you own stock in defense corporations, then you would make some of the increased demand. Yeah, but I'm pretty sure that every other part of your portfolio would suffer. But hold on one sec.
You know the Papa John's saying, better ingredients, better pizza, Papa John's. Mm-hmm. You know, these guys is more wars, more people dying, more profits, defense contractors, right? That's a valid concern that I have. Because behind closed doors, this whole military-industrial complex, when you look at the numbers, whoever becomes the president, unfortunately, this guy's an anti-establishment president, good. Unfortunately, if you're an anti-establishment president, everyone's going to come after you, especially these military defense contractors.
Oh, Daddy Trump.
So if a president got up and said, if I'm going to be the president, here's what we're going to be doing. We have to look at all the contracts. You can't overcharge us. We have to open it up. You have to sell some of your companies. You have to let them be independent again. You have to do this. You have to let them go public, separate, whatever way you got to break them apart to have competition again, because we don't have that today. You know, so that is a major concern where we say we have a commander-in-chief, but really the commander-in-chief is Larry Fink.
Whoa.
Today. The guy running Blackrock is really the president of the United States. If we look at the kind of influence he's got in every industry, Joe. And he's like, well, I kind of feel bad. I'm ashamed that all the weaponization, the word, ESG is being used and all this other stuff. And Elon tweeted about the ESG. I don't know if you remember when Elon tweeted about ESG, saying the S in ESG is satanic. Okay? So
insightful.
This is a part where even a Charlie Munger, who is Warren Buffett's partner, says, look, I love Larry Fink, but I'm not interested in having an emperor. Some words like that he said about Larry Fink. So this motive, and by the way, Larry Fink is an interesting guy because he majored in college political science. His aspirations was politics. He accidentally got into money. And he learned the trade, and then he lost $100 million at 36 years old, I think. And then he teams up with Schwartzman, and they start this company. And after a couple of years, they got $5 billion under management, $8 billion, and $32 billion. And then they have a difference because, he wants to give equity, and Jamie's, Schwartzman's like, no, and then they separate. But influence of politics, you get into business, you're a billionaire. It's you, Soros. So I'm extremely concerned about what these guys are up to. And we think our president is the most powerful person.
Why do they think ESGs are bad? I don't get it. The defense contractors at least make people afraid when they hear. I mean, like the traditional argument is ESGs is that they're like wokeifying companies and somehow taking control of woke America with neo-Marxist woke scores. And if you don't have a woke score, your company's go bankrupt. That's some autistic shit. I don't know. I argue with James Lindsay about this, but most of these people don't even understand like how anything on the stock market works. So like none of it ends up making sense. Like they'll say like ESG is like tanking companies and making them less efficient, but people push ESGs because your hedge fund or your asset manager or broker like wants you to do it. Even though that would just mean that other firms would just be more profitable. You just invest in non-ESG firms and make a fuck ton of money. But then other people say that I guess all the firms are, I don't have the mental bandwidth right now to steelman this retarded shit. It's just stupid. I'll just say that. It's just stupid. What is this? Oh, we'll look at this after.
That person's not. Because behind closed doors, they're going to be like, look, guys, let's relax. That guy's only going to be there for 4 to 8 years. We're going to be all right. He'll be out. We're running the world. We're okay. We were running America, but now we're running the world. We control all the ETFs in America. We're controlling all this stuff. Everyone has to come through us, and we can tell everybody what to do because everybody fears not getting money from us, from being downgraded. A Tesla on ESG score is nothing, but a Philip Morris gets an A rating. How the hell the company that's Philip Morris has a better environmental social governance score, DEI, not DEI, but the CI, the score they give it over Tesla?
So like what he just said is an interesting question, but then this is why I don't take any of these people seriously. They're like, we're just asking questions. Yeah, that's all you're doing. You're just asking your question. You don't do any research. Why not look it up? How does Philip Morris have better ESG score than Tesla? Is there an answer to this? Tesla got added to an ESG index, but oil and tobacco firms scored higher. For investors interested in Tesla and companies with the highest environmental, social, and governance or ESG standards, there's some good news and bad news. Good news, Tesla was added to the S&P 500 ESG index in April. It means investment managers tracking the benchmark to buy Tesla stocks. Also acknowledgement Tesla is running its business in line with ESG principles. Bad news, based on S&P Global ESG scores updated in May, Tesla still scores way below average, lower than most automakers, and lower than Chevron, which was also added to the index. Tesla scored 37 out of plus 100. Chevron scored 43. S&P Global didn't immediately respond to requests for comment about scores. Tesla goals, blah, blah, blah. But E is just one letter in ESG. Tesla does fairly well on that metric, scoring 60. That's better than Chevron's environmental score of 48. Still, Tesla's E score lags behind the best automaker Volvo. It scores 85 on the environmental portion of the S&P ESG rating. Volvo sold about Volvo. What a weird fucking company name. Volvo sold about 163,000 cars in the first quarter. About 29,000 were fully electric. Tesla's the world's largest seller of all electric vehicles. It sold 422,875 EVs in the first quarter, or in the quarter. As for Chevron, social and governance scores is where the oil producers caught the EV maker. Chevron scored 42 and 40 on those two metrics, respectively. Tesla scored 20 and 34, respectively. Disclosure practice might be part of Tesla's problem. Tesla discloses less information than other companies, according to the S&P Global. Scores are at least partly built using 61 industry-specific questionnaires. For companies that do not respond, a team of expert analysts fill blah, 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 blah. So that's the answer, okay? Now, the reason why having this answer would be important is because then maybe we could have an interesting conversation. Are the ESG scores fair? Are the questionnaires fair? Should Tesla have been rated higher? That would be an interesting question. But since this guy's too lazy to do any of the actual research, he just comes on and poses a question like, how the electronic car maker do worse than tobacco maker? Like, you're not asking an interesting question. And you didn't even, we just Googled this in 2 minutes. Like, this took 2 minutes. It was 2 minutes to look this up. Why didn't you look this up? This is like the main part of your platform that you talk about all these conspiracies. Why not take 2 seconds and actually like Google it?
That's Philip Morris has a better environmental social governance score, DEI, not DEI, but the CEI, the score they give it over Tesla. So they can bully some of these guys.
Let me ask you this. What do you think the goal of ESG is? Why do you think they're establishing these sort of parameters? Like, why is ESG a thing, and what's the benefit of it for them?
So Schultz said something very interesting. Schultz says, look, these guys are driven by money. They're not going to do anything to destroy an economy to lose their own money because they want that. I said, okay, so very good. Andrew Schultz. I said, that's a very good point, on what you're saying. Fine. So, you know how sometimes Michael Jackson, you see the interview with him with kids. Oh, they're just sleeping in the bed. That's all it is. And we're just having a great time and we're storytelling. And like, yeah, bro, I get it. It's a little weird. You got a 7, 8-year-old, 10-year-old kid sleeping in your bed and, all this stuff. And it's a little bit fishy what you're talking about here. It's not normal.
The still man of this would be if, and the keyword is if, Vanguard, who manages pensions, says they refuse to hold such, would sell off stock from their indexes. They can control them through fear of divestment. Okay, Sean, if it was the case, like, if we can do one thing well in a capitalist society, it's invest capital in profitable firms. If it was the case that ESG was actually making companies less profitable, and there were these horrible, evil, weird Jewish dudes or whatever in Blackrock or whatever forcing companies to adhere to ESG, wouldn't there just be a whole secondary market that would open up for people that would just do non-ESG investing? Because at that point, there's literally a pot of gold at the end of a rainbow for somebody to open up a fund and go, hey, we're a new fund. We do non-ESG investing. We don't waste money on fucking dog shit ESG funds or ESG firms. We just do firms that are non-ESG, right? Like, look up total assets in all ESG funds. Total assets in all ESG funds. Then look up at total assets in Vanguard. How do I look that up? Like, is there a way to see global assets, total assets, ESG, management? Global ESG assets may surpass 41 trillion by 2022 and 50 trillion by 2025. 1/3 of the projected total assets under management globally, according to a new report. This trend continues to rise for ESG assets after they surpassed 35 trillion in 2020. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this number. And then you said look up total assets under management. Total assets under management of Vanguard is about $7.7 trillion. There you go. And the issue with Destiny's view on anti-establishment thought is that it's concerned based on stories they find easy to believe. His view on trans and abortion are also easier for him to believe. Okay. Wait.
Normal. Well, if you're in Hollywood and you've slept with as many people as these people.
What? Hold on. 1 second. Okay.
People sleep, and then eventually you have to have other. And yeah, bro, I get it. It's a little weird. You got a 7, 8-year-old, 10-year-old kid sleeping in your bed, and all this stuff. And it's a little bit fishy what you're talking about here. It's not normal. well, if you're in Hollywood and you've slept with as many people as these people sleep, and then eventually you have to have other options, because what else do you do? You have to try new things. How many threesomes have you had? How many this, how many that? So you start trying all these other things, and sometimes these guys go to such and such place.
What? How many women do you have to f before you're like, man, I need to try a 10-year-old? Yeah, Jesus, I need to be careful. What's my body count at? When do you start becoming a pedophile? Jesus.
Doesn't matter. It's kind of weird and fishy, right? On what you want to do. Great. Okay. So why are these guys doing what they're doing? You have all the money in the world. You live in $100 million house. Not you, Larry Fink and some of these guys. I don't know if he lives in a $100 million house, but you got the money to live in $100 million. What else do you need?
Right.
You got nice cars. Jamie Dimon's got a $900 million art collection, according to an article. It's a nice art collection, right? You go to all the nice restaurants, you meet prime ministers, you meet presidents, and then maybe there comes a time when you're looking at a couple of these guys, they're presidents and prime ministers, and you tell yourself, I'd be a better president than you, bro. How the hell am I not reading the country? Or they tell themselves, you think you're a president? You're not a president, you work for me. What else is the motive?
Like, he said so much, but has said absolutely nothing. How, can we point to like a single fact or like a single weird thing that's like actually happened, other than like, look at this and this and this and like, okay.
ESG, how does that factor into
But the point is control, is what I'm saying. So the motive becomes control more than money. After you have all the money in the world, what's next? It's got to be control or a true vision. So Soros, when you're talking ESG, that story is a completely different story. You ever heard Soros's interview with 60 Minutes where he says, I see myself as a god? Have you ever seen this interview or what he says?
No.
Really?
He said he sees himself as a god.
Oh my God. Jamie, do you mind pulling up the...
Jamie, pull it up.
Quote. I think it's, if you type in LA Times Soros God. If you type in LA Times Soros God, when you hear what he says, it's like the second to the last paragraph all the way to the bottom. The guy asks a question, about who he views himself as. I want to quote it properly, exactly what he says in this
Is there
interview.
a video of him saying
Yeah, 60 minutes. There's a video as well. So if you go all the way to the bottom, go a little bit higher, on the quote. No, go a little higher. I think it's a little higher. Keep going higher. Sort of a demonstration. Keep going higher. Prevailing values. A little higher. There's a part where he says, keep going. What year is this article, by the way? Is this it's an old article. It's supposed to be
2004.
That's the one. This is the one. Okay, right there. It seems that Soros believes he was anointed by God. I fancied myself as some kind of a god. If truth be known, I carried some rather potent messianic fantasies with me from childhood, which I felt I had to control, otherwise they might get me in trouble. And then on the next line, when asked by Britain's independent newspaper to elaborate on the passage, Soros said,
"Made a career for people like PDD on the internet. Being a fake centrist and pretending to be interested in asking questions and talking about ideas is lucrative. They are all right-wingers."
Maybe, yeah. Jesus.
Known, I carried some rather potent messianic fantasies with me from childhood, which I felt I had to control, otherwise they might get me in trouble. And then on the next line, when asked by Britain's independent newspaper to elaborate on the passage, Soros says, it is sort of a disease when you consider yourself some kind of a god, the creator of everything, but I feel comfortable about it now since I began to live it out.
I wonder how many of these people that are critical of, I don't know the context of these Soros quotes, but I wonder how many of these people defended like Kanye West essentially calling himself and treating himself as a god. I'm so curious. Wait, did he say messianic? And he read it as Masonic? That's kind of funny. Oh, wait.
Get me in trouble. And then on the next line, when asked by Britain's independent news, they might get me in fantasies with me from child known, I carried some rather potent messianic fantasies with me from
No,
childhood.
he said messianic. You're wrong. Who just said that? He said messianic.
Which I felt I had to control, otherwise they might get me in trouble. And then on the next line, when asked by Britain's independent newspaper to elaborate on the passage, Soros says, it is sort of a disease when you consider yourself some kind of a god, the creator of everything, but I feel comfortable about it now since I began to live it out. You hear? So for me, I got 5 of them. Let me see if all 5 of them are here.
That's a lot.
Yeah, let me see if I got one of them. Did he bring the other one as well?
One more that's outside, I think.
Huh?
I don't know which is outside.
There's a
but
box.
still one more
Sam, if you're watching,
Small.
it's a small box. Yeah, if you can bring that one in, that'd be great. First one is...
Hold on.
Okay, so I'm betting myself. I think you're gonna love one of them. I hope it goes in your comedy club. Okay. Joe's the coolest guy too.
Okay. I love how he can believe all these conspiracies and dig up old quotes and evidence, but when it comes to Tate, he somehow can't buy that he is possibly a trafficker after the messages, videos, and interviews that Tate has done himself. True! Andrew Tate and Donald Trump were put on this earth to show us how fucking biased Republicans or conservatives are. True. Absolutely true.
He's really good at it. So he went to the right guy.
So about 72 individuals say that they saw Donald Trump say that he was going to try to rig the election.
And dig up old.
And they're like, I need to see every single one of those 72 people. But for JFK, one guy in one book that was found recovered out of a burning building that has been verified by nobody said that actually there were 3 shooters and one of them worked for the CIA. That's 100% fucking true. Absolutely. I've never believed anything more in my entire fucking life. So, did you hear the Clintons are rapists? Yeah, I know that because they were on the flight log of a billionaire that flew maybe like 10,000 different people around the world. Absolutely 100% rapists. Wow, crazy. So did you hear that Andrew Tate has like a 70,000 page indictment by the Romanian government? All these oh yeah, but like that's all fake. I don't believe any of that. Impossible. What about the videos? Deep fake. Well, they're not deep fake. He was faking it, I mean. He was deep in his mind faking bullshit on his stream. He didn't actually do any of that. He was just talking shit, obviously. What about the courses that he sold for it? Well, he was just scamming delusional men. Well, like, okay. None of that evidence is compelling to you? No. Really? Who do you think did 9/11? I know the Jews did it because there were some guys dancing in a building once that I think were tied back to Israeli intelligence. Oh, that's... Yeah, obviously. Obviously that means that Israel was involved. Oh, that's all the evidence you need for that? Is that even evidence?